to the Department of Culture, Heritage and the Gaeltacht's Budget 2020 press conference with Ministers Madigan and Kyne. The format pretty similar to other press conferences. Each Minister will make an opening address relevant to their area of the Department, and then we'll open it up to questions from the floor. If I could ask that we take budget-related questions first, please. If there's any topical issues, we'll deal with those at the end. So first to speak is the Minister for Culture, Heritage and the Gaeltacht, Josepha Madigan.
Thank you, John. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. It's a particularly busy time of the year, so I appreciate you coming along. It's very important. I think this is only my second budget as a senior minister, but like last year, I took soundings on the impact of the budget, and notwithstanding the fact that we are in a very difficult climate in terms of making a budget with Brexit, I was very pleased that my department was able to increase funding by over 15 million. And it shows the solid progress I think that we've made over the last 3 years, and I was very pleased to see that the Arts Council and the Heritage Council and Biodiversity Ireland all very much welcomed the announcements from our department. And there's also been positive reaction from the National Concert Hall, Screen Ireland, the Screen Composers Guild of Ireland, the IFA and the Irish Forum for Natural Capital. So I think there's an understanding there that notwithstanding everything that is going on, we have been in a position to increase funding and maintain funding across the board. And I think this shows and demonstrates the government's commitment to doubling the funding for my department by 2025, and I'm confident that we will be able to honour that commitment. So my department sees an additional funding allocation of 354 million in this budget, which is an increase of 5% on last year, and a cumulative increase of 17% over the past 2 years. And that total funding increase comprises 7.2 million in capital expenditure, which is up 10% on last year, and over 8 million in current expenditure, over 3% on last year. And this funding will also enable my officials to continue delivering the department's 10-year capital plan of 1.2 billion. And so the arts and culture sector will benefit from funding of almost 193 million in 2020, an increase of over 2% from 189 million last year. And of this, some 153 million will be current expenditure and a further 39.7 in capital investment. At 80 million, funding for the Arts Council on Corla Alien is at its highest level for 10 years, which is an increase of 5 million over last year. And this includes 1.25 million in additional funding to enhance the Council's work in supporting performing artists, art festivals, street arts and family events. And my department is also reallocating 3.75 million from its existing vote to strengthen the breadth and the reach of the Arts Council's role and remit, particularly in relation to Culture Night and Creative Schools. Of course, we can't forget about our European City of Culture, which is a big factor for next year, Galway 2020, and that will receive an additional 1.1 million in capital funding this year, following on from 6 million last year. So it will be 7.1 million in 2020. And this supports the government's commitment to deliver Galway 2020, which, as we know, is a significant international showcase for our national creativity and spirit. Screen Ireland, Fís Éireann, will also receive an additional funding of $1 million from this budget. And as we know, the government recently extended the Section 481 film tax credit to the year 2024 and has also extended the regional uplift of 5%, which will provide an additional incentive to Irish and international production across the regions. And all of these measures are in line with the Audiovisual Action Plan and our ambition ultimately to make Ireland a global hub for the production of film, TV, drama and animation. In relation to the Decade of Centenaries, we have granted an additional 900,000 for this year. This will enable a significant programme of events to be rolled out next year, including commemorating Bloody Sunday on the 21st of November. We're commemorating the execution of Kevin Barry on the 1st of November, and this needs to be done, and all commemorative matters, in an appropriate and meaningful manner, consistent with the advice of the Expert Advisory Group. And the budget provides $1 million as well to start the process of transferring the National Symphony Orchestra to the remit of the National Concert Hall. You may recall I brought a memo to Government, I think in July 2018, in order to do that. So that's very important that is carried out, and that it was a significant step in the right direction. Funding of 250,000 is being made available for the amateur theatre sector and musicals across Ireland, something in an area that hasn't received any funding for many years. So that's something that's quite exciting. There's continued funding as well for the Creative Ireland programme, Culture Ireland, and of course investment in the renovation of our national cultural institutions. And schemes and policies announced earlier this year, such as the Percent for Arts scheme and the extension of the social welfare scheme, in conjunction with the Department of Social Protection, reflects, I think, the government's commitment to Irish arts and artists. And over the last year, in terms of the heritage sector, I have listened very carefully to the extensive public discussion on biodiversity loss and the threats to nature. And as we held the National Biodiversity Conference in Dublin this year, which I hosted, where out of that we developed the Seeds for Nature's initiative, and there was wide-ranging public debate and consultation on the Heritage Ireland 2030 plan, as well as extensive engagement across government on climate action, which was instrumental in me securing significant additional resources for this area. So under this budget, total funding for our built and natural heritage in 2020 will increase by 15.5%, which is up 8 million to 62.5 million from last year's 54 million. And this comprises additional capital provision of 6.75 million, which is up 44% on 2019, as well as additional current funding of 1.46 million. So the 7 million, with that we'll embark on an accelerated programme of peatlands restoration and conservation works. And this programme will result in 1,800 hectares of restored peatland in 2020. We will generate approximately 100 jobs in the Midlands and ultimately the storage of 28 million tonnes of carbon. So the restoration and rehabilitation of raised bogs will provide multiple additional ecosystem services such as water and air quality improvements, flood mitigation, enhanced biodiversity, opportunities for tourism development, and contribute to the social and economic well-being of local communities. In relation then to key nature, conservation and biodiversity programmes, we will be providing an additional 1 million, and we also plan to take on a number of frontline conservation specialists. The Farm Plan programme, a bit similar to the amateur dramatics and the culture sector, is an area that hadn't been touched for many years. We've doubled that funding from 500,000 to 1 million. And this will assist farmers with lands designated special areas of conservation in their role as custodians of nature. So all of those are important, and as well the tourism interpretive master plan will continue, because the visitor centre experiences are very important to our national parks and reserves. We have approximately 9 million visitors a year. We will also continue to maintain and develop and foster North-South cooperation with additional funding to Waterways Ireland and continued support to First na Gaeltacht and the Ulster Scots Agency. And Minister Kyne will speak to you a little bit about that. But suffice to say that I'm very pleased that even in this difficult time that we find ourselves, that we've been able to increase our budget this year, and I'm very happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. If I can call on Arasat Seán Kyne.
Margaret, Seán Madigan, Orthruni, Family Marine, Gunisha Glare, Falcher Rove. I'm Clorcine Rinnan na Tachulish na Gaelga, agus le úsáid na Changa mar Príomh Changa an Pobal sa Gaeltacht, agus Cudú le Furburch in Wunia ar an Pobal ar Nélan. Famína de Breis is 8 milliún Corta Lati ve Clorcine or Christian the Gaelga na Gaeltacht na Hilan fehe. Leis an Alan to show, Jane Ferneshti Brescia Avara Huig Cantor Gaeltacht on Pusta Crohu, through the major tower Bonagudros the Gaeltacht. Yoe on Tudros, Lapdalach, Brescia capital, the €1,000,000. Chun Lapdalach or one capital a horch Suiscogi jet million. Shin made with the Brescia agus Hinjeg Fingade La Hosh Governors and Ejeg. And Bunwino is Orja to Forte Aquila Biognok Jeplin and Noose. Comala Shin, Corfor Cockade Mila, Brescia Narragad Rahar Faldudros the Gaeltacht, Lapdalach on the Corcum and Gaeltacht. Shinoscan €1,000,000 no made of the Queen Figade the Narragad Brescia at a quarter fall on Arnold Tower the shot the 3 billion and Noose. Comala Shin by Chak the Gudros the Gaeltacht, their Mino Brescia, Sachos, Catalori, Bratamocht, Gan Sucru. Tom Harvest Sauce Darnoi, and then on Winu Bresh Raha, Agus Capital all Dudras to get to the Lin Trevsha, a big Tovatuk, if we let a bunch in the Hobber, the Hagriot. Jane for National Glananoch on and Strategic Veheblin Don Gaelga Currivine, Curfer Kuiged Mila Bresh Dro and Process Planal Changa FFR. Tá bunú le limster planál teangas a géiltead faoi lánseo agus tá súil ag an rin go ceadófar sús le 53 plan teanga ar fad faoin phróiseas rih deara na bliana. Tá séideag as 26 limster planál teangas a géiltead cadia go dtí seo. Fógraíodh bearta nua le bliana nús chun taú leis an phróiseas teanga. Le nríthir inistíobh suntasach breise chun taú leis an airna lu blianta a seach na teanga síl an tealaí agus na halín tradiisiúnta. Kinchoy lap dollar brush the gawkid shock the quick meal at the bean fehe, go my father service she umparate and a quick na hillon. Tagan Cheshaw Snasala and Kenya Arinyame le Garage, Hishta Ijaronak modula Forbush na hillon Avonu. I say I'm Clardine, the Rina Huibu Hui Has a Hunyal, a Forbush as a Kirk and Keen, a gotex going to Ian and Costa, a Curravime. Fin Clor Shaw, Jane for Changa's culture na Gaelgas and the Hultush. Churcon Keen 3 first na Gaelga agus Níomhaíocht na Hultais. Ar cúnta áirithe for our Níomhaíocht mar chumas airgad breise chur seas a chlár seo a feithe. Chur na buisiid seo le céile gótext bratamocht a bheith teacht, bhí an rialtas stúma maidir lenar cinse an dálu le muoinú agus den mbliana táid cuaramach faoi an média catchicus a bheith muid ag ddíriú orthu agus servicetí a chobatal agus tionscadal agus chlár a chur fáil ag an am céine. Tríidir an eistigh glananach seo I chunse dús lánach. Lanamuid le curvhaim na stratéis fithe bliain an rialtas don Gaelga.
Okay, we'll take some questions now. First question. Over here.
Complication as Gaelga agus bei ceiste go don Seán Madigan don Aristotle dús is tócha a ríiste gomrád leis na réimsí eile sa Ryan seo ní bhór cuasaí Gaelga agus Gaeltacht a céad an ísisiú le ardú gomrád leis na réimsí eile an bhfuil díma ortfí sin tá sé ráta ag urlairí airgead sin féin Pierce Doherty go méidir go méid ar údarás na Gaeltacht a ciurathe a dhéanamh mar gheall nach fuair siad an tardú atá tastalúthe chun a gcuid ibre a chur a bhain. Chomáile sin an féad leat soléirú a thuairt faoi cadas a dúchaigh an tarigid chun airfort na mine ag an amara a cheannach tá sé rád ag an rainn go bhhailh an téirfort sin a cheannach le cinntiú go mbeadh cuasaí airtheastal chuig áran slánathe agus chumá just ceist don Seán Madigan chumá. Could you give clarify what is going to happen to Coltus? Michal Martin was suggesting on the Dáil yesterday that Coltus is going to be moved to the Arts Council, and he was suggesting that this is basically an accounting exercise in order to boost the funding of the Arts Council, and that it would do a lot of damage to the work that Coltus is doing.
Minister Kyne, do you want to start?
Yeah, go back to sin, Michal. Voor moet je meedoen carfing gate mliana. Agus Thomas Sostel is meedoen sin gotex na Jackers die agus doeslaan modules aan bratimacht. Ze sin ratchen hier kaspelen ara sinshort no social creator of Sostel is major worship vin gulle ara glorig niet smog sin a Harlean ak gotex aan doeslaan shaw doeslaan modules aan bratimacht. Thomas Sostel go bhórmuid an méadú sin go bhfuil muid an milliún breise a chur fáil do tógraí capital agus an obair a dhéanaan údarás na Gaeltachte go raibh muid an taú leis na córcumann déanann siad obair fíorfar tábhachtach agus Thomas Sostel go raibh mar chumas chur leis an méidetá siad ag fáil a fear cúpla bliain an nús agus déanann siad job fíorfar tábhachtach ó híomh agus freisin go bhfuil leat milliún chuirt ar fáil don próiseas planál teanga agus tá dulchan cinn suntasach déanta agan I tro an próiseas sin agus rud antá fíorfar tábhachtach agus lárach sa strátéis fithe bliain. Maidir le airfort na mine Tá iiritas géantagan leis an ciste ón Forbert rin Forbert Pobl agus tuaithe ón Tara Michael Ring agus tá muidir fada don nuacht don iiritas sin bliana ach tá muid sásta go bhaid ar chumas an targad á lastit an rion chun an airfort sin a ceannach gin Seán Kyne tá cás gnó Creekní agus glach an rion catchgus paidlí leis an cás gnó sin so níl éon feib an sin corbe bhí si dan sásta leis so tá muidir dul an tro ceart chun an airfort sin a ceannacht ar son an stát agus ar son winter arden a géine sin an Kyne agus freisin maidir le údras de Gaeltacht tá airgad fáta acu ón cistí eile freisin trasrialtas ó híomh an méidir bhórsí duna na G-Techna ar an spidéil agus ba siad áisclú dearan na míosa fórsid airgad a rís ón chuiste a chinan don túthe ón Tara Michael Ring. So tá deisina sin acu agus tá san go bhfuil iirtaí eile chuirtas se acu agus freisin sin an go bhórsí airgad don G-Tech guidóir ón ciste sin. So tá an cópáirtíoch sin trasrialtas agus tá údras de Gaeltacht ag inán breisach chunaí áil ó the ciste sin.
And the cultist question for Minister Madigan.
Yeah, we don't envisage at this stage that Kiltus Kiltoran will be transferred to the Arts Council. However, as I mentioned in my opening speech, we will be reallocating 3.75 million from our department to the Arts Council. So, from the Arts Council's perspective, there will be 5 million of a new spend there. We will be transferring Culture Night and also Creative Schools, which I think is a good fit for the Arts Council, and they already do a huge amount of work for both those areas. I'm very pleased that the Arts Council will be getting 80 million, which is the biggest amount that they've received in over a decade.
So will there be a decrease in the amount of funding that Coast is getting because of that?
No. The precise composition of exactly how we're going to figure out that reallocation, we'll be able to publish that in the revised estimates in December.
Next question, please. Deirdre, here, get a microphone to you.
Hi there. I'm just wondering if you have any further details of what's planned for the commemorations next year.
Well, apart from the execution of Kevin Barry, which we will be commemorating in a respectful way, we also have Bloody Sunday. I mentioned that also on the 21st of November. There's also the burning of Cork on the 11th and 12th of December. There is the death of Cork Lord Mayor Terence McSweeney on the 25th of October. There's the burning of Balbriggan on the 21st of September. There's the Connacht Rangers mutiny on the 28th of June. And this will be in conjunction with Sligo and Roscommon local authorities. There's a lot of focus on Cork next year. There's the death of Cork Lord Mayor Tomás McCurtain in March. And there's also the local elections of January and June 1920 as well. But we continued to work as well with the Expert Advisory Group and the All-Party Committee on Commemorations, and indeed the local authorities. We've given a substantial amount of funding this year of 900,000 in order to carry out that programme. We'll also be working with universities, national cultural institutions and other government departments as well to ensure that we have a very respectful and inclusive commemorative programme.
Thank you. I was wondering also that 3.75 million reallocation from the department to the Arts Council, how is that all broken down? Which of the functions besides Culture Night and Creative Schools are being reallocated?
At the moment, we are in discussions about that within my department. With the precise composition, as I said, will be determined in the coming weeks, and we will publish those details in the revised estimates in December. Culture Night and Creative Schools will be transferring, and the Arts Council are aware of that.
I was also wondering, in light, there was there was some research this year about the low rates of pay for people working in arts and culture, and I'm wondering how you would expect this budget to benefit those given that effectively it's a 1.25 million increase to the Arts Council, who are the direct funders of arts workers?
Yeah, I mean, the Arts Council is the primary channel for funding artists, but it's incorrect to say it's 1.25 million. It is 5 million in new funding going towards the Arts Council, and it will strengthen and expand their breadth and their scope. It will add gravitas to what they're already doing. They're very pleased at the fact that they will be receiving actually it's a 7% increase. And I think when we take into account Brexit, when we take into account the difficulties in relation to biodiversity and climate action, the fact that we were able to give an increase to the Arts Council is significant in itself. And so, yeah, so that's really it.
But I mean, I suppose you could argue that
but there's also
additional responsibilities with that 3.7.
There is additional responsibilities with it, but I think that they are best placed I mean, at the end of the day, they're going to be supporting artists, and it's the people on the ground that we're going to be looking after. They're the people that need the work. If you think about Galway 2020, that's a significant spend going to that this year. That will also be assisted and be of assistance to artists. There's the Percent for Art scheme and also the social welfare scheme, which have gone a long way to serve artists. And it is, I think, you know, as the Taoiseach said in the Dáil yesterday, it is regrettable that we weren't able to increase it further, but it is an increase. It isn't a cut. And I think that's, you know, we're on a good trajectory, and we've a good roadmap ahead in terms of doubling the funding by 2025, and we're committed to doing that.
Although it's probably behind already.
No, I disagree with that, because, you know, there was an assumption that it could be front-loaded this year because of Brexit, because of all of the details that we've outlined in terms of climate action, in terms of the peatlands restoration, in terms of biodiversity. We weren't in a position to increase the culture sector more, but we still found a way within our own department to increase the funding by 5 million, which is going up 7%, and the Arts Council themselves have welcomed it.
One more, Deirdre, okay?
Yeah, sure, sorry. Question, how it's regarding how the department would be happy with 1.25 million to the Arts Council and Culture for Culture Ireland, which is effectively leaving the sector at a standstill when growth is essential. It's a question actually from the National Committee of the Arts, who had sought to be here.
No, there's still substantial funding going to Culture Ireland, and, you know, Culture Ireland is extremely important because it's a way of showcasing Irish talent and Irish artists around the world, in the UK, across Europe, in America, and the funding is being maintained, and that's very important. So it's equal on an equal footing than it was last year. So there's no cuts in relation to any of this. You know, I think that Culture Ireland do a huge amount of good work, and we're in a position to facilitate many Irish artists going abroad. And the overall support for culture is up to almost 193 million this year. It was 189 million last year, so that's an increase.
Okay, next question, Sinead.
Sorry, it's kind of the same question, but I just want to clarify in terms of the figures. So the NCFA are claiming it's only an additional funding of 1.25 million. You're disputing that?
No, I'm disputing that, because from the Arts Council's perspective, they are receiving 5 million in new funding, and they're actually going to be expanding the breadth and add gravitas to what they already have, and in terms of getting Culture Night being transferred over, and also Creative Youth. So it actually beefs them up to a certain extent, and there are huge opportunities as well, and I've said it earlier in relation to Galway 2020 for artists. So a significant amount of funding has gone into that as well. There is an overall increase of 4 million for 2020 in the culture budget, and that's a 2% increase. And there's also the 1.2 billion capital plan, which is being rolled out as well, 460 million for the national cultural institutions. So all of it is very positive, and, you know, there's no doubt from the Taoiseach's perspective and from the government's perspective that we will be in a position, and once Brexit has been to some degree solved, if you like, by 2025 to double the funding.
And in terms of Brexit then, obviously artists as well as every other business are going to promote. Like, is there anything particular being done to help artists, particularly touring artists who may do work because of Brexit across the board?
Yeah, well, I suppose it's important to remember that the common travel area will still apply. I mean, there's no immediate significant impacts from Brexit on my department, with the exception, of course, of Údarás na Gaeltacht, and Minister Kyne can speak about that. But beyond, I suppose, the Gaeltacht areas, we do see a role for the department in terms of the Decade of Centenaries, in terms of the GB18 programme, which I think went a long way to help, which brought new acts and new artists to the UK stage. We're, of course, looking at all parts of our department to see where it's going to be affected. The National Cultural Institutions have been making plans in terms of borrowing different pieces of art or artefacts from different countries. But in terms of artists, there's free movement there, and that will continue between the UK and Ireland.
Anybody else? Over here.
Hi, I'm Matt Murphy from Seán Kyne TD, Screen Industry Publication, so it's specifically about the funding for the screen industry. The audiovisual plan and the promise of 200 million over the 10 years for Screen Ireland, the capital budget is now 17.2 million, which is still behind where the pre-recessionary rates. So it is a case that it's not. To make Ireland a global centre for excellence requires a certain amount of front-loading of funding rather than it being gradually increased so that the production companies here can get up to speed so that we can put infrastructure in place for studios and the rest. I'm just wondering, is there a roadmap for that funding?
The audiovisual action plan is the main driver for the film industry. Screen Ireland have welcomed the fact that we are giving 1 million extra next year. I think that's positive. As I mentioned in my opening speech, we want to make sure that Ireland is a global hub for film production. It's something, as you know, the Taoiseach was away in LA recently, meeting with some of the stakeholders. I think there are opportunities there, for example, in Cork, in terms of the regional uplift. Troy Studios is doing extremely well, and I think that we can expand that throughout the rest of the country. And also the fact that Section 148 has been extended as well to 2024 is significant. So, this government very much supports the film industry, and it's something that we want to continue to do. But when you talk about recessionary figures, if you look back to even 2008, 2009, I mean, even the Arts Council budget was slashed by 9 million at that time. So that was a cut. So there's no cuts here. There's continued support and continued uplift. Now, obviously, it goes without saying, and again, to refer to what the Taoiseach said in the Dáil yesterday in relation to my department, we want to double the funding by 2025. We weren't in a position to do that this year because, obviously, of the issues that we know about. But we're very confident that we will be able to do that into the future.
Yeah, it's just that in particular there is this talk of doubling the workforce as well for the screen industry. So that from the Osborne SPI report, that there is the potential to do that. At this particular moment in time, a number of production companies are struggling because of financial issues to do with RTE as much as to do with the limited pot that is there for Screen Ireland. Screen Producers Ireland have asked for an immediate increase in line with what the BAI asked for an immediate increase in funding to RTE to help with this particular issue.
Yeah, I mean, there is a strategy in place to deliver the outcomes. I'm aware of the issues that you're raising, and we're working towards resolving those as best we can and working with the industry in order to achieve that. We have to make sure that there are jobs for people in the industry and that training is supervised correctly as well. And I'm confident that we're working on it as best as we can with everybody involved.
Okay, any more questions? One more over here.
Ceistúán eile faoin bhforas thugann a foras seachgéad míle euro leis. Bhfuil aon soléú faoi cé leis an target sin is donna go bhfuil an foras arán ná bhfuil an target lecha sin Mulleen Solero Nuvino Fi Calas Dawning Ontario.
Yeah, tá Solero tugtag an rain ar an ceis seo le cúpla lá nús. Chahan an ferras beagnach an talentus Olivia ige goblas a hochjig hartar níchaní faoin géad dar antas is í aragad Seaglas nach chahabh aragad nach rá faoi snacht ferras na Gaeilge nó board na holtas agus curún targad sinna dro tógraí eile a bhain le chlársaí do chuid na rinne. Freisin maras oldich níl an chorla ariocht hui hasig feimú ar fab beagnach 3 bliain. So tá ferras ag feimú faoi réir an buséid a bhí acu agus de cedóí goblas a séideag. Ach bhí me an breis airgad a chur fáil don na ceanagriachtaí mlíana mar hampla an airgad cedi mé an teachtain se chatte faoi an scéim fandúirt Josepha Madigan hartar 683 míle do glór na Gael. So bhí me an airgad a chur a tród na ceanagriachtaí sin cosú le glór na Gael agus conúir na Gaeilge agus bhaimid sásta go bhaimid an sinna dhéanamh a ríis a fithe. So tá airgad fáte de ceanagriachtaí agus déana siad sin obair ar son antseanga a tíomh mit an Gaeltacht tras na tíre.
Okay. I think we'll bring matters to a close there. Thank you all for coming this morning. We have some press releases here if anybody wants them. So once again, thanks very much indeed.